Hello, my name is Dylan Carter, and I will show you in this video how to disassemble this Type 56 SKS. First thing we should talk about are the 4 rules of firearm safety. Treat all firearms as if they are loaded, know your target and what's behind it, keep your finger off the trigger until you are ready to fire, and do not point your firearm at anything you do not intend to destroy. The only tool you will really need to disassemble the SKS is a punch of some kind. I am using a screwdriver with a small T10 Torx bit, as it is what I have at hand. Before we do anything else with this rifle, I would like to perform a safety check. I pull the bolt handle rearward, pulling the bolt rearward, check the magazine and the chamber, I let the magazine back out, and I let the bolt go forward, and then I can do a quick safety check by pulling the trigger in a safe direction with the safety off. Okay, then close the magazine and we can continue with disassembly. The first step is to push up on the gas tube and internal gas piston lever only until the lower divot hits the top of the track, and then you can pull the gas piston assembly off of the rifle. At this point, you can pull a little bit further on the lever just after the little track so you can let out the internal gas piston, making sure to put pressure on it so it doesn't spring across the room. The next step is to push up on the rear dust cover disassembly lever and pull it back, allowing you to take off the dust cover. The next step is to pull back on the bolt handle and take out the bolt carrier bolt and recoil spring. If you are having issues with slam fires where this is the first time you are taking this rifle apart, I recommend at this point you knock out the pin on the bolt and clean the firing pinhole so that you have less risk of slam fires in the future. At this point, we can put away the dust cover disassembly lever and put away the gas piston disassembly lever so that they are not damaged when we turn the receiver upside down. The next step is to grab a punch and push down on this little pin while pushing up on the trigger pack. Before doing this step, make sure you have the safety on, as the safety being in the fire position blocks this pin from moving. Once you have the pin pushed in, pull up on the trigger pack. The next step is to wiggle the internal magazine out of the gun like so. The next step is to take the cleaning rod out. To do this, gently pull back on the bayonet, pull up on the cleaning rod and take it out of the channel. The final step to complete disassembly of the rifle is to pull up on the receiver to separate it from the stock. You can either pull up on it or push up on it from the trigger pack space below the stock. You've now fully field stripped your Type 56 SKS. To reassemble the SKS, you essentially follow the disassembly steps backwards. Firstly, we must put the receiver back into the stock. You can do this by making sure the barrel band on the receiver, and specifically on the barrel, will lock into the inlet on the stock. Please be careful when putting the stock back onto the receiver, as the receiver can scratch up the wood if you are not careful with its placement. We can now close the bayonet. Next, put the internal magazine back into its space. You need to make sure that this hinge point that I'm currently pointing at and the hinge of the magazine side is going on first. You can slide this in, making sure that it will lock in place and set into its spot correctly. This does typically take a little bit of fidgeting to make sure it works right. Next, we must insert the trigger pack into the rifle. To do this, make sure to use those 2 pins and insert them underneath the little hinge point inside of the receiver next to the rear of the magazine. Next, you need to make sure the trigger pack is secured in place. To do this, you just have to smack the trigger guard into the receiver and the button should pop out like so. Next, we'll put the cleaning rod in. First, you pull out the bayonet. Then you can insert the cleaning rod through the hole in the receiver next to the bayonet and secure it in place in the little latch. Then you can close the bayonet. Next, we need to reinsert the internal short recoil piston assembly. Pull the lever back up to the point where you're able to remove it before and push the internal piston assembly back into the recess it is supposed to go into, making sure to hold pressure so it doesn't swing across the room again. Next, you need to insert the gas tube into the gas block and then secure it onto the receiver of the rifle. With the lever put in the right spot, you can just smack it right on in and it should go in place cleanly. You can then push the lever back down and secure it into place, making sure that the gas tube does not come out again. The next step is to put the bolt carrier group back into place. Make sure your recoil spring is in the back of the bolt carrier. I prefer the method of putting the bolt into the gun, then latching the carrier onto it to send it home, like so. Next, you need to put your recoil spring onto this little hump here. Next, rotate and pull out the dust cover pin and put the dust cover back on, then push the pin back in place to secure it so that it does not come out. Let's do a quick functions check. Pull the bolt back to the rear, make sure there's no ammunition in the gun, let the magazine out, let the bolt back forward, take the rifle off safe, and then pull the trigger in a safe direction. Cocking the rifle again, you should hear the hammer hitting the firing pin. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you're able to disassemble your rifle with ease.